Hello and welcome to MadeMeThink.xyz, a publication on NFTs, Web3 and the Metaverse. And today my guest is Holger from MetaBrewSociety, and I'm happy to have you here, Holger.
Hi, Thomas. Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure.
I saw this project and it piqued my interest because it's not the normal type of NFT project. So can you tell the listeners what is the MetaBrew Society?
Sure. So MetaBrew Society is the attempt basically to combine the traditional industry with NFT technology. And it actually started about at the end of last year when we're a founders team of seven, when we sat together, and we've known each other for a long time. When we sat together and were resonating about our experiences in the NFT space, and most of us had been burned in the last year with projects that were either complete rug pull projects where we went in out of FOMO, or basically were projects without roadmap, where if we had taken a little time to make some due diligence, we would probably have never invested. But there was so much going on, and everybody kind of had the feeling we need to be part of it. So we invested. We have been burned, and then by the end of last year, we were sitting together thinking about kind of where's this space heading. So what is working on and what isn't, and where is this space heading? And basically, part of our analysis was that um, there can probably be only so many additional PFP projects, because how much more can there be? Yeah, so it's a kind of profile picture.
You
Yes.
can only have one PFP on Twitter,
Yeah,
yeah?
you can only have one PFP. You can be kind of can participate in a number of communities, but how many are you really want to be? How many do you really want to be associated with? And then what's behind? And what we saw is that actually there were very few projects where there was a clear value behind, or where there was a clear roadmap behind, a roadmap that was tied to some kind of tangible value, or some kind of value someone could put a number on, or could understand, or could at least put an expectation in. Most of them were really around, we built a community and we do something great in the metaverse, and to be defined later. So that's something kind of everyone clear in his mind probably would not want to bet real money on in a normal situation. But kind of last year was no normal situation. There was all this kind of new development excitement, and everyone expected something great to come out. But reality showed that actually, when there's not much behind, most of the time, there's not much going to happen. And that's what was the case. So we were actually, I mean, we're seven entrepreneurs. We've all built businesses. We've all started and built businesses. And we were thinking it must be time now for the next development in NFTs, for the next stage, for the next generation of NFTs, where actually the NFT technology can be used to combine it and to revolutionize, ideally, an existing industry. I mean, there's so much potential in NFTs, in the technology itself, yeah, in various areas. So we were thinking kind of what is something that we could bring to the table, where we could make an interesting project, where we could combine real life business with NFT technology, and basically use NFT technologies to disrupt things in an existing industry, to make things different. And then actually one of us kind of, and I don't remember which one it was. One of us actually said, "Hey, let's buy a brewery." And in the beginning, everyone will say, "Hey, hey, yeah, haha, great idea, funny." But the longer the evening lasts, we actually thought, well, why not? Why not buy a brewery? And then starting to think about kind of what would NFT technology and Web3 and blockchain and all these things, which opportunities are there for something like brewing beer. Yeah, because kind of we had all in common interest in NFTs, blockchain, crypto, and we were sitting together drinking beer, and all of us had some experience also in home brewing and kind of various experiences in that space. And actually, almost every one of us kind of had the dream one day in our lives we want to own a brewery. So it actually came together well. And we were thinking really then kind of what can Web3, NFT, blockchain, what can it do to the brewing industry? And then we started actually thinking about kind of advantages, possibilities, etc. So it became very obvious to us very early on that NFTs, and that's what it was for PFP projects, is a great way of raising funds. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Then immediately the question comes to our mind, kind of, why not doing a traditional crowd investing or crowdfunding? Yeah? And we've heard this question very often. So our answer to this is basically that the traditional crowdfunding is not liquid. So someone actually places an investment in some kind of asset, and then typically you're locked with that asset. Yeah. So either you kind of get some kind of a return, financial return, if the company you've invested in is successful, but you typically get that financial return when the company exits. So in a normal startup scenario, you're locked in for at least 5 years, more likely in the order of magnitude of 10 years. And if you, in the meanwhile, if you see kind of you don't like where this is going, you don't like the roadmap, you don't like the development, there's no way to get out. Yeah, so you're locked with this investment. Even the ones where kind of you get something in return for your investment, Kickstarter or something like where you get a physical good in return to your investment. Very often it's a one-time thing. Yeah, so you actually you put down an investment, you receive a one-time gadget or good or something like that, and then that was it. Yeah, so it's a one-time transaction. And we thought actually that NFTs um, are actually a perfect vehicle to put down an investment, but to keep this investment liquid, because there's a secondary market. So if you don't like what you see and where it's going, you just turn around and sell it on the secondary market. You may sell it for a loss, but you may also sell it for a gain. But you will be able to sell it, yeah, one way or the other. And the other thing is kind of tying a physical good to it. We think that NFTs, because of actually that kind of proof of ownership that you can do with it, NFTs are much better suited than kind of any way in the traditional world to tie them to a continuous flow of goods, so to a continuous remuneration in terms of physical goods, because it can even, or especially as they're liquid, you still can prove ownership very easily. So you can make sure that that the physical goods you tie to it, they reach actually the person that owns the NFT. So kind of these were kind of the theoretical things, or theoretical thinking we had around that. And then we actually established the idea to say, we buy a brewery, and the original idea was this, that we say kind of we issue a couple of thousand NFTs, we buy the brewery, and we give the NFT holders co-ownership rights at the brewery. Now, the co-ownership right, the really initial idea was kind of shareholding. Yeah. So how can we structure a shareholding that's tied to the NFT? Then we started talking to lawyers about regulation, and our insight was very soon that there's no way we can do it. So if we would tie real share ownership to the NFT, we would get into all kinds of regulations. Yeah, in Germany, we would have to be audited by the bank's regulatory body, BaFin. Yeah. Internationally, if you look to United States, you're in the financial securities trading area where you need licenses, where you need kind of all kinds of documentation. In general, what it would mean is we would have to have a prospect to go out with the investment. And already that is something, if you do it professionally, costs a couple €100,000. If you then continue that going down that path, we would have had to do quarterly financial reports, written financial reports, audited, etc. Yeah, so it gets very complicated. That's the reason
Yeah.
why we actually basically refrained from the idea of tying actual shares to the NFT, and we came up with the idea instead of shares, so defining co-ownership by owning shares, we would actually change it in a way that every NFT holder would just get a very rich annual beer allowance. And we came up then with the concept where we say every NFT earns 200 cans of beer on average, 200 cans of beer per year in perpetuity. And so that in perpetuity, that's something that you cannot guarantee in the beginning, but that would be the goal. So what we can guarantee is from the mint price that we would ship beer for 3 years, because that's something that we can structure in a way that the mint price covers the cost of the beer production and the shipping for the first 3 years. And then after those 3 years, the plan is that we use those 3 years to set up a profitable operational business. And after those 3 years, the profits of the operational business cover the cost of the utility. So cover the cost of continuing to ship on average 200 cans of beer per NFT per year. So if that works out, it's going to be, I think, an awesome investment because we've set the price point in the meanwhile to something like $1,000 per NFT in ETH. Not knowing what ETH is going to be at the time of mint, we don't set an NFT price yet. We basically say it's $1,000 in ETH, and we're going to translate these $1,000 into ETH probably a couple of days before the actual mint. So the worst case, the worst scenario is basically an NFT holder pays $1,000 and gets 600 cans of beer, so 3 times 200 cans of beer, which is $1.66 for a can of craft beer delivered home. I think nobody can say this was a bad deal. But if we continue beyond those 3 years, the deal is actually getting pretty exciting. And this is what we want to convey, that we basically say it works in a way that it's risk mitigated. So even in the worst case, even if we're not able to build a profitable business, the worst thing is really you get 600 cans of beer and you pay an okay price because it's delivered home. But the best case, it is continuous forever. And to make that even a little bit sweeter, we combine it with, for sure, I mean, it's Web3. We combine it with the community. Yeah, so we're building a beer lovers community that comes together regularly. The first event we're going to host is this September. We will probably not have been minted by then, but we're inviting the whitelist holders and everyone who has ordered beer in our shop to a September fest at our brewery, which is actually going to be the grand reopening or the grand opening of the MetaBrewSociety brewery, and the grand reopening actually of that space, because it's a brewery that has existed for almost 150 years. And we're basically just rebranding it, modernizing it, and then reopening it. So kind of Septemberfest, we're not allowed to call it Oktoberfest because that's a brand mark of the city of Munich. So we call it Septemberfest. So we're going to have our Septemberfest at the brewery, 3-day beer festival, big tent, live music, and lots of beer lovers sitting together celebrating. We're going to repeat that every year. So NFT holders come together to events. We'll have brewing classes. We will have beer tastings in real life at the brewery, but also, and And that's our plan at a digital twin in the metaverse, digital twin of our brewery in the metaverse, so that people can either participate in real life, in person, or they basically participate in the metaverse, so virtually. But we will try to actually make it a similar experience as far as this is possible. And an additional thing is voting rights. So we actually give the power to the NFT holders community to vote about which beers we're going to brew, how we're going to sell them, where we're going to sell them, which channels we're going to use, etc. Also pricing, we will ask the community. And in terms of kind of what it does to, or what the positive impact is on the business, we believe that this community that we're building of NFT holders, but also beer lovers around that, is going to be a huge focus group. So we're going to have 6,000 NFTs, and which means that we're actually going to have 6,000 people target group, that can serve as a huge focus group that will help us decide things like product market fit and everything around it. If you're speaking about kind of the famous 4P of marketing, yeah, price, product, promotion, placement, or place, um, this is basically what we're going to ask the community. And we're going to use the decisions or the feedback of the community along the way throughout the 4Ps of marketing in order to be able to kind of optimize product market fit, by asking the community. And I think that's a big asset. That's something that kind of big companies spend a lot of money on market research and on doing focus group with like 20 people. And we basically have a focus group built into the model, a focus group of up to 6,000 people, our NFT holders. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that we think actually has quite some potential of disrupting the space. And as I said initially, so the initial idea was that we issue the NFTs, and from the funds of selling the NFTs, we would buy the brewery. Yeah, so we received a lot of feedback, especially as we're in a bear market right now. We received a lot of feedback from inside the community that actually said, so what if we don't mint out, or what if we don't reach that threshold of number of NFTs sold we need in order to acquire the brewery? So what happens with the project? Does it collapse? Does it kind of, what happens with the money? What happens with the funds that have been paid in? We took this serious, and we actually reached out to a group of investors we have been working with for a long time in various different businesses. And we were able, within a relatively short period of time, to raise funding that enables us now to buy the brewery pre-mint. And that's another building block for us to actually take out the risk of the whole thing. Had we started like half a year ago, there would probably have been no doubt in the community, will this mint out or not? But as we're in a pretty difficult market situation right now, people are afraid, and people get more risk averse. So the question arose, and we had an answer to that question by just going out, raising the funds, and we're about to close the contract now on buying the brewery. So we will, within the next 2 weeks, we will acquire the brewery, we will own it, and we will start modernizing it. And then by the time of the mint, everyone who mints will be sure that there's no risk associated with it, whether they get their beer or not, because there's no threshold anymore. So every user who mints will 100% with 100% certainty at least get those 3 years of beer out that I mentioned before. And we think that in this combination, actually, kind of combining old-fashioned funding, yeah, round of funding to basically acquire an asset, but then combine it with the community, give something back to the community for their investment, and give something which they can put value against, but also give some, and I think that's an important element of Web3, give some experience, some entertainment with the events, with the brewing classes, etc. Yeah, so actually give something to actually build and bond a community around that. And
Yeah.
and that would be our target, to actually attract a number of people that stay with us for the long term, and that actually help us kind of set this all up, but also help us build the business. And also that this is going to be a win-win situation, so that there's everyone incentivized basically to help build the business. We've also defined an affiliate program where every NFT holder can receive 20% commission on revenues which we make with customers they've acquired for us. So if you would go out and would acquire basically kind of the resort down the road to serve MetaBrewSociety beer, lifelong, you will receive 20% commission on every revenue we make with that resort that you've acquired for us. So this way, the community actually receives an additional benefit. So when they're able to actually spread the word and they buy into it and they like the beer, and so far the feedback on our first beer that we brew, the feedback has been great. Yeah, so if they like the beer and they like to spread the word, they can generate some significant passive income because it's forever. They don't have to, but it's an opportunity. And if they do, so for us, for the company, actually, it's a great thing, because potentially we have so many thousand salespeople then out there in the road, and everyone who gets active and acquires customers for us, be it actually private customers or business customers, contributes to the probability rising that we'll be able, beyond those 3 years, to have a successful business. And
Yeah.
so that's basically kind of in more than one nutshell, but that's the
Holger, you
idea.
answered like 80% of my questions right up front before I could post them, but that's absolutely fine. So we have some time now to go deeper into that topic.
Yeah.
So first of all, if you're relatively new to NFTs, all of that, and listening to that podcast, so a PFP we've been talking about, that's a profile picture, so the Bored Apes or CryptoPunks or something like that. So this is not a PFP project, but you still have some art in it, I saw on your website. So what are you planning? Is that also something you want to deliver on?
Absolutely. So when we started, actually, we thought that, I mean, it's still NFT, and it came out of this art and profile picture space. So we wanted to also have a unique element, a unique piece of art that is connected to the MetaBrewSociety idea. And one in our team, Chantal, she's an artist. And we actually said from the beginning, we also want to deliver on the art side. So we want to make sure that each of these 6,000 NFTs we give out is unique. So we could have done basically a kind of membership card that looks the same for everyone. But we said, actually, I mean, we have the capabilities, and we want to show our community that we care, that we want to give them also a unique piece of art. So we started coming up with the idea of our NFT basically looking like a historic share certificate. So if you remember kind of the things that people had at their walls, basically saying kind of erste Stammaktie, Siemens,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever, stock, Siemens, um, which was a piece of art, kind of, yeah. So the people were actually hanging up at their walls. So we wanted to create that feeling, yeah, so that someone who receives a kind of membership NFT at MetaBrew Society, that there's a piece of art associated with it that is unique, that also actually is something that people that looks good and that people kind of like to show and to share. So that was the idea. So we create a certificate with kind of different background colors, different frames, different kind of core center element, art element. Everyone is unique, but it all ties back to the same kind of corporate identity of MetaBrewSociety being a kind of membership or share
Yeah.
certificate. Yeah.
Yeah. So to wrap it up to the listeners, if you buy the NFT, you get that really nice piece of art, this certificate style art piece, and you get a utility that is basically you get beer delivered to your doorstep each year
Correct.
as long as the breweries exist.
Correct.
And
Correct.
and it depends like on the rarity of the NFT if you get like more or less beer, but at least you get like 160 cans or something like that, I read.
Correct. Correct. It's on average is 200. It's at least 160. It's maximum 240. We have a few kind of very, very high NFTs. So we will have one with 300, we'll have one with 500, one with 1,000, one with 2,000, one with 3,000. But those we are going to auction
Okay.
before the actual mint. Yeah.
Yeah.
First, to create a little bit of publicity, and the second is we're going to donate that money that we receive in there. But the actual kind of NFT distribution is between 160 and 240 cans, and on average, so with a high concentration, actually around 200. So on
Yeah.
average, it will be 200, and it will be delivered to any place in the world for free.
Oh, really? You're also paying delivery costs. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you're getting these beers delivered for free to your doorstep, depending on the rarity you get at mint date, kind of that is ruffled. So you don't know what, but at least 160 beers. And if I read it right, you get some vouchers dropped to your wallet that you can redeem for the beer. Is that true, or how is the mechanism afterwards is looking like?
Yeah, so we need to take care of a number of challenges with that, kind of with the beer tied to the NFT. I mean, first thing is if someone sells it on the secondary market, we need to make sure that there's some kind of transparency for the buyer, kind of how much kind of beer is used up already on the NFT. Yeah, so when he can expect basically the next shipment. And there's also the need every time to make sure we have valid addresses, valid shipping addresses, and we get an age verification every time. So we're required by law basically to make sure that we get an age verification every time. So therefore, what we're going to do is we're going to split the annual allowance of on average 200 cans. We're going to split that into 4 quarterly allowances of on average 50 cans, and the quarterly allowance needs to be claimed. So you need to kind of go to our site and basically claim it. So put in your current shipping address. You'll have every time you'll have to actually pay that. We're doing that already, €1 or $1 with your credit card, so that we can actually check through your credit card that you're in Germany kind of drinking age is 16. The credit card check is not about 16, it's about 18. So we're on the safe side. So if someone owns a credit card, they're at least 18 years of age. So that requires that is sufficient actually for an age check. So therefore, every time we will ask for that kind of symbolic €1 or $1 paid by credit cards, so that we basically have an age verification that we can show proof to the regulator if we need to. And the actual claiming mechanism works in a way that we will airdrop 4 times a year. We will airdrop Polygon NFTs. Polygon because of the transaction fees being much lower. So we will airdrop Polygon NFTs to the wallets of the NFT holders. And with that Polygon NFT that actually holds the quarterly allowance every quarter, you can do two things. First, you go to our site and you claim the beer. And by claiming the beer, you burn the NFT. Second option is you sell your quarterly allowance on the secondary market.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you don't want to drink the beer, you can monetize it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
And
really interesting. So you can sell your beer to other persons on OpenSea, basically.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you can just sell it, and then someone else can claim it,
yeah,
and we don't really care who claims it.
yeah.
We just kind of guarantee that for kind of every kind of airdropped NFT, and it holds a quarter of your actual annual allowance. Yeah, so you can sell it, and we ship to the person who claims it.
Yeah, I
And
mean
yeah.
that is from a customer side. I really like that idea because you can basically you can sell it if you don't want it. You can also get it in smaller amounts. So when I read about the project, I saw like I get these 160 cans delivered once a year, kind of, and then you have to stock it somewhere around. But from an entrepreneurial perspective, I was surprised by that now because you're also covering the cost. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that cost perspective? I mean, how you're going to cover that in the long run also?
I mean, it's a to be very open. It's a big cost factor,
Yeah,
logistics. Yeah, but we think that if we just give out the beer and then say kind of everyone has to pay for freight themselves, it gets pretty cost prohibitive.
yeah,
Because I mean, right now, if we're shipping a case of beer to the United States, it costs us about 30 euros. And yeah, so if someone orders beer now, they kind of pay like 11 euros. We subsidize it. Yeah.
yeah.
So we want to make sure that as many people as possible can try the beer, can see whether they like it. So that's the reason why we've put up kind of an investment from the team to basically ship those beers. But we can't do that forever, right? So in the future, I mean, there needs to be a business model behind where the costs are covered. So therefore, if we actually do it in a way that everyone kind of would order the beer and then pay the cost, um, it would kind of the cost of shipping would be much higher than if we use a standardized approach like the one we're now trying to use, or we're now planning to use, where we organize it centrally. So how it works is the following. So we're working with a logistics provider that I've been working with in my cosmetics business for a while. So I've been in cosmetics for about 10 years. I've been importing and exporting to the United States for 10 years, using primarily to the United States, using a logistics company that operates central warehouses basically at major ports at the two coasts. But besides that, also at major ports, basically at any continent. So what we're going to do is that we're basically shipping using that logistics provider, and the difference between a prohibitive cost that currently is insane, like rather like 50 euros per case of beer. It's a big case of beer, and 30 for a small one. But the shipping with DHL or something like that, if we would ship the quarterly allowance with DHL, it would be in the order of magnitude of between 50 and 80 euros. Yeah, it's insane,
Yeah.
right? So, but we can get that cost down actually by using that logistics provider and shipping in bulk. That's another reason actually for kind of cutting it into four pieces, and then to have the claiming window, because that basically means that 4 times a year we're going to ship out the quarterly allowance basically all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually cover the claims, and then kind of there's a deadline until it needs to be claimed. And then by the deadline, we start processing the claims, and then it goes out all at once, which has the advantage that kind of if there are like 3,000 orders going to the United States, we're just basically filling a container. Yeah.
Makes
And
sense.
they're doing basically intra-company logistics from their warehouse here in the port of Hamburg to their warehouse at the port of, I don't know where it's, Boston or
Yeah.
LA. Yeah. So actually at the ports, and then they break it up basically and they ship it inside the country. Also important there is, which is a restriction that we have to adhere to in the at least in the beginning of the project, is that every box we ship is the same, because then actually we give them basically 6,000 boxes, and we give them 6,000 addresses, and which box goes to which address, we don't care and they don't care. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they basically
Yeah.
just have to make sure that it ends up at the right port.
Yeah.
Further down the road, we will look into basically optimizing that so that every NFT holder can have a kind of customized order for their claim. So once we increase the variety of beers, yeah, so the goal is actually that every NFT holder can have an individual order, yeah, kind of 10 of that and 5 of that and 15 of that and whatever. But that's something that we have to refrain from in the beginning in order to get kind of that logistics process rolling.
Yeah.
So
That
once it's
that
rolling
makes
and we've
sense.
tried it out a couple of times, then we can start customizing it.
Ah, that's really interesting. Yeah, of course, that will drive complexity again as an entrepreneur to the logistic part. But for the customers, it's definitely an upside. I mean, I read you're thinking about bringing out the protein beer. I would really like to see that happening, because need to get my proteins in when doing sports, and that would be like a win-win. Like beer with proteins. I mean, it's the best of two worlds combined, kind of. But
Yeah, we're going to look at alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So that's basically the philosophy. Yeah. So that
yeah.
we actually want to provide awesome traditional beers, also with the function. But we also find there's an increasing demand on the market also for non-alcoholic beers. And non-alcoholic
Yeah.
beer, which is per se isotonic, and then kind of adding the protein, this is an awesome sports drink.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. It actually is. Yeah.
internationally. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an really interesting project you're having here. If we're looking again at the brewery, you're trying to get in about like 6 million euros or something like that. If you send out if you give out 6,000 NFTs for 1,000 euros. Is this the price of the brewery, or why is it exactly 6,000? Should that cover the brewery, or how much does a brewery cost?
Yeah, it covers the brewery. I mean, we've raised basically up to $3 million in funding now, and these 3 million, they cover the acquisition of the brewery, the modernization of the brewery, the acquisition of additional equipment which we'll need. For example, currently at the brewery there's no equipment, there's no kind of can filling equipment. Currently at the brewery, there's no osmosis equipment for making non-alcoholic beer, things like that. Yeah, so kind of we'll need some additional equipment, technology, in order to kind of to do what we want to do. So the 3 million budget is basically what is there for the acquisition, modernization, and also basically enhancement of the brewery. And then the other 3 million basically are kind of entirely for covering the NFT utility, yeah, in the first 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's basically our current calculation. So we've raised these 3 million funding, and the plan is still that, and we want to be a community-driven project. So the plan is still, if we're able to mint out, we would basically pay back the investors. So we've structured the investment as a convertible loan so that we use it if we need it, but if we don't need it, we won't use it. So, or
Yeah.
we will basically pay it back. And so if we mint only half, we would keep like half of the money, and we would convert it into shares then. But that was our original idea, that we say kind of it should all be covered by the mint, and we will also have long-term benefits, also long-term financial benefits for the Genesis NFT holders. So for the one that kind of mint our first NFT, I'm not allowed to talk about it because of regulatory reasons. Yeah, so we have to avoid under any circumstances
Yeah.
that anyone does the investment into our NFT with the expectation of a financial return. Getting beer fine, getting kind of money not fine, because then we're in the financial securities. Yeah, so but we will come up with a plan to basically involve them also into the in the success of the business.
That sounds
But
interesting.
yes,
Could,
so the 6 million covers everything, the brewery and the beer.
yeah. Maybe could we? I know you've done a lot of work actually on this legal and regulation part, and this is kind of one of the, I think, how to say, hard topics in Web3, NFTs, especially if it's about ownership and stuff like that. There's a lot of regulation in the making also.
Yeah.
A shout out at this point to Oliver Scherenberg, who just started Lawyers for Web3. That's basically an initiative that wants to help you go through that questions kind of. Could you tell the listeners if there are some people out there who are also thinking about launching their NFT project, what you learned when looking at this regulation, like what are the few learnings you took away?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a space that is, and not only in Germany, that it's a space that is internationally, it's highly regulated when it comes to speculative investments, yeah, which it is, no doubt. So in the United States, we would have to basically kind of make sure that everyone who invests is an accredited investor. We would have to have a license. We would have to kind of, yeah, we're in kind of the complete financial securities regulation.
Yeah, if you
In
gave
Germany,
away ownership, if you gave away
yeah, if
ownership,
we
yeah,
gave
yeah,
away ownership, yeah. So in Germany, it's as I said before, kind of we would have to kind of be regulated by BaFin, Finanzdienstleistungsaufsicht, yeah, which is kind of the banks regulator, or financial markets regulator, which is again something. It's a lot of documentation. It's actually something that you don't want to be involved in when you're a startup. Yeah, when you don't have kind of a structure, kind of and a legal team and a financial team and things like that can handle that. So that was our key insight, that there is so much regulation around it, that if you, so if you want to avoid this, you have to avoid promising a financial return for the investment. As soon as you get into, you invest here and then we promise you basically a financial return, it's you're deep in that hole. Yeah. So co-ownership, no matter how you structure it, it's so we can speak about co-ownership rights, yeah, because voting rights are rights that a kind of co-owner would have. Getting free beer are rights that a co-owner would potentially have. But it can actually not be a real co-ownership. The funny thing is actually, if it would be a real co-ownership, so if the NFT holder would hold shares, they would have to pay taxes on the beer they receive, because
Ah,
suddenly the beer becomes a dividend or
yeah,
return
makes
on
sense.
investment. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is nothing. So if you pay just kind of $1,000 and then you receive beer over time, the financial authorities worldwide view this as it's a transaction. So you pay today and you kind of get over
Yeah.
time. But if you do an investment and you receive shares, then everything that comes out of that suddenly is actually a return on investment. So it becomes a dividend, it becomes taxable. Yeah. So it's all that kind of stuff that's associated with it. So so I think the cleaner way for both sides, for the company, but also for the NFT holder in terms of taxes, is basically to keep it transactional. So to keep it at a level where you basically say, yeah, you give me money, I give you beer. Or on the kind of on the affiliate program, you give me customers, I give you money. Yeah, so it's a kind of one-on-one transaction, something that the financial authorities can relate the one to the other, and it doesn't get into a, you placed an investment once and now you get out A B C D E. Yeah, so it's very important to structure in that way, to always stay on the transactional side, because otherwise it involves regulation, documentation and taxes that you would have never imagined.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That
as long as you keep it at that point and say, yes, kind of, we're a community, let's build something together here. But basically the NFT is transactional. Yeah, transactional in a way that you pay money, you receive goods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
you bring a service, acquiring customers, you receive money. Yeah. So clearly defined. And so it's that's very important, and that's basically our key takeaway. Yeah, not try to get into that kind of real co-ownership thing. Also, in terms of the DAO, yeah. So how do you associate a community with an actual business? And I think the MetaBrew Society is different from most NFT projects in a way that we do have an operational business behind. Yeah, so it's not just kind of we raise some money, we put it into a kind of fund, and then we all decide together what we're going to do with the money after the founders team has taken away 80% of it, which is probably the kind of the norm for most NFT projects. Yeah, so there's remains a little bit money, and then the NFT holders decide what to do with it, where to donate it, or whatever to do. No, here it's different. I mean, there's an operational business that produces the output that you've paid for, but the operational business also requires that it is a, I mean, we set up basically a limited company, a GmbH in Germany, yeah, which is kind of a limited company, private limited company. So there needs to be an operational entity, and that operational entity that has employees, yeah, that has sales, that has profit, and actually it's a normal business. So, but how to associate then the NFT holders with this business in terms of voting rights? And we've looked back and forth, and we came up with the idea that is, I mean, the German legal framework is relatively restrictive on something like that. So, kind of, how can we organize the NFT holders in a way that they can take business decisions without them being shareholders? It's not that easy, but what we came up with basically is we're going to structure an advisory board. That is something that's possible within the legal framework in Germany for a GmbH. So we structure an advisory board, and actually we're going to have 6,000 people in our advisory board. It's uncommon, but there's no law against it, right? So so in the end, what the NFT holders do, we ask them, we create a vote, they create a vote, and the vote actually then goes into the management decision. But the legal framework is it's an advisory board. And I'm pretty sure that we'll get questions about kind of how does that work to basically have an advisory board of 6,000 people. But we're prepared for that. Yeah. But so we're trying actually to squeeze that new world into these
Yeah.
old kind of frameworks.
Yeah.
And it works in a way. Yeah. It will create a lot of questions, but there's no law that prevents us from doing that.
These are really interesting insights, Holger. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, this is really helpful, I guess, also for other projects to come. To how to structure something like that in Europe or maybe even in Germany. Yeah, so really interesting stuff. So if you guys never heard DAO before, that's a decentralized autonomous organization. That's basically a
Yeah.
Web3 organization structure that can vary from like the participants or NFTs holder have a say in certain decisions to they decide on everything that is happening. Like in some DAOs I'm active in, I basically I have to vote on the trainees' wages or something like that. If something will make an internship, do we pay him or not, or stuff like that. So you are more like on the side where you say you involve the people in important decisions where you want to have the
Yeah.
community say on where you should go in which product directions and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Well, with regard to the time, I have like one or two questions left, if that is fine with you, Holger. I don't know if you have a hard stop at 12 now, or if you have a few minutes left.
Totally. I mean, one more comment on this is in terms of kind of business decisions. I mean, the difference again between MetaBrew Society and many others is that we do have an operational business to run. So if we direct every operational daily business nitty-gritty decision to the DAO or to the NFT holders, will not be able to run our operational business. Yeah, so therefore we do have a management team in place that needs to take decisions like that. So sourcing of raw materials, local staff. We're basically partly taking over running brewery with existing staff. So this is nothing that I feel the need, nor does it make sense to actually involve the NFT holders on voting, kind of whether we keep the staff. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've not met them. These are things that I think should be management decisions.
Yeah.
But key strategic directional things like that is something where I think it's mutually beneficial to actually get the NFT holder vote for the NFT holders in order to make them feel that they're part of the journey, which they
Yeah.
should be, and for the company that it gives direction from a focus group basically of people that are friendly with the business or that are at least friendly with the output of the business,
Yeah.
which is the beer.
I mean, what I really like in that space is that is involving, obviously there are like all of these different forms of like organizations that come up now, and you pioneer a new kind of organization in Germany, like with an advisory board of 6,000 people kind of, I never heard that. And we will see, where it goes, which forms are like the one that will kind of be superior in what case. It's obviously you cannot use a complete perfect DAO in every case. Maybe there are some mixed forms in futures and all of that, like you build up now, and it makes sense to me at least. But before we end the interview, I would like to dive into two topics, if that is fine with you, because I would be interested in what kind of traction you got till now, kind of, how hard it is basically to market a project like that in a beer market now, and what are your experience from starting that project now?
So our experience is it's relatively tough in current market conditions, because like half a year ago or 9 months ago or a year ago, you only had to be out there on Twitter and shout we're an NFT project and people would just kind of come and follow. So it's not like that anymore. So there needs to be done a lot to reach out and to stick out. So we've established collaborations with a number of influencers in the space. We've established collaborations with a number of other projects where we kind of do mutual giveaways, where they introduce us to their community and we introduce our community to them. These are the kind of things that you have to do currently. So we've built close to 6,000 people on Discord, close to 17,000 people on Twitter, close to 10,000 people on Instagram. These are the three channels we're active, and yeah, it's been a fight for basically almost every single one. What we also see is that if you do promotions with influencers, it's always something you can't fully control. For example, we've done a number of collaborations with influencers where we said we do a beer giveaway, yeah, because we only want to attract people that are interested in the project, so that at least want kind of a case of beer and whitelist. Yes, that's the typical giveaway we're doing. But then suddenly, they post it, and in addition to the beer and to the whitelist, there is something like win $100 in ETH. Yeah, so we discussed it before, yeah, but still, they post it, and then there's something like that. Sure, it drives them engagement, Yeah, they can say afterwards, look, so many thousand people have actually participated. Yeah, but like 50% of them have no fucking interest in beer. They just want $100. And then basically it happens that through promotion like that, kind of we gain like 5,000 new Twitter followers. But we know exactly that probably half of them, they're not following us because they're interested in the project. They're just following us for the $100. And what in the beginning, I mean, when we had very few followers, we actually started to try to wipe out those. We basically call them giveaway hunters manually, but it's not that easy. So what we do now, if we've done a promotion like that and it went wrong like that, we actually give it like 2 weeks to cool down, because the people, they unfollow after a while. Yeah, so if they don't receive the $100, they start to unfollow, and that's an experience that we've made. So in order to be able to have a real guess on how many real followers we have, um, in a normal promotion where it's only about beer and whitelist, like let's say an influencer that has like 250,000 followers who does a real promotion, yeah, on basically beer and whitelist, we gain something like between 500 and 1,000 new followers, yeah, which is great, which is cool. And then there's a lot of engagement afterwards and everything perfect. But then there comes someone who puts in $100 in ETH. Then instead of 500 new followers, we get 5,000 new followers. And probably it's less than 50% who are real then, yeah.
Yeah.
So that means if that happens, then we can turn back the time, yeah. So we,
Yeah.
we actually have to give it like 2 or 3 weeks to cool down, so that those who are not really interested in the project and us posting kind of beer bottles and beer knowledge all the time, start unfollowing us, and then we actually see it trickle down the actual followers number to a realistic number. And so therefore it's a continuous juggle between, yeah, you need influencers or partnerships with other projects, things like that, to grow the community, because I mean, it's important that people know about it, because if they don't know about it, they don't find us, they can't mint. But then again, if people with such a followership do such a deal, you're not only getting the people that are interested. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a continuous struggle for the right eyeballs, and I would have expected it to be easier, to be honest. And we've done a lot of these promotions. We've done a lot of collaborations. In the meanwhile, we've also got free mentions of influential people in the space who basically kind of discover us and say, "Wow, that's pretty cool. That's a new concept. I've never seen that before. So let me know more about it." So that's something that is awesome for us, and that is something that we want to drive more. Um, but as I said before, I mean, you have to come in front of people. You have to reach eyeballs. The way to do this is through influencers, and then there are good ones, and then there are bad ones, and then there are ones that basically kind of you pay a certain amount of money for doing a promotion with you, and then they
Yeah.
disappear. They basically kind of
Yeah.
never do anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and still, I mean, there are tons of influencers that have 100,000 followers that are not doxed. Yeah, so they just ghost you, block you. No way. Yeah, you can start then complaining with
Yeah.
Twitter, but it's a struggle. It's a struggle. The good thing is we're getting better at it. Yeah. So kind of the more we do of it, the more in the beginning we can already understand kind of what kind of people they are and which are the good ones and which are the bad ones. So yeah, we're getting better with it. And the nice thing is that there's an increasing number of people in the space that basically say, when we get in front of them, I've heard of you before. You're the guys with the brewery. So, and that actually shows us it somehow works. Yeah. So we're getting known in the space. More and more also influential people post it or repost or think it's a good idea, but it was a tough start.
Yeah,
And I mean,
I can believe. Yeah,
and right now, I mean, everyone is risk averse because of the bear market, right? And kind of ETH just being kind of, I mean, today it's at 1,500, but last week it was at 1,000. So yeah, people were cautious,
yeah,
and the hype was gone away. Yeah, so it has been more
true.
difficult than we thought to build a community, but so far I think we're
Yeah.
doing well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the sales of OpenSea also are like declining very rapidly. So market side is pretty hard at the moment, but still, yeah, the project has potential and it's interesting. And I guess if you come in front of the right people, they will have a
Yeah.
look at it or want to try it. And I actually tried it and I really enjoyed the beer. So you said you guys had some home brewery experience, but it actually, I guess there was one guy at least who has more experience than home brewery because it really tasted good. So if people want to try it or want to join the whitelist or join the MetaBrew Society, how should they go forward?
One comment actually on this. So we do have a professional brewer. In the meanwhile, we actually do have two professional brewers in the team. So yes, we do have home brewing experience, but actually, yes, I mean we have a professional brewer, and he is the one who developed the recipe, and the rest was testing and basically saying like it or don't like it. Yeah. So yes, I mean it should, you should taste that there is some knowledge
Yeah.
about beer behind. That was our hope. So
Yeah,
how
and
can
it
you
was really
join? I
good,
mean,
really good.
thanks a lot. That's great. I mean, we're putting also we're putting great ingredients in. Yeah, so that was the big thing for us in the beginning. Say, I mean, we want to, in the beginning at least, we want to brew the traditional German beers, but kind of how can you differentiate there? I mean, just use very good ingredients. And the hops kind of don't use pellets, use the actual flour. Yeah, use various types of hops to actually get it more well-rounded, things like that. Yes, that's the stuff we want to do. That basically industrial beers, they're generally brewed with pellets, hops pellets, and they're kind of, the actual flour has a completely dolde in German, has a completely different taste than if you use pellets. So that's what you taste, yeah, if you compare it to an industrial beer. And that was our hope, that people would be able to taste that. Yeah. And it worked out quite well. Yeah. So how can you join us? I mean, you find us on Twitter. The handle is MetaBrewSociety. You find us in the on with our website metabrewsociety.com. You also find it on Instagram under MetaBrew Society, and actually the community is gathering in Discord. And if you go on Twitter or if you go to our website, you'll find a link tree where if you click then on Discord, there's an invite basically to our Discord server. Just follow the invite in the Discord server. You have to basically verify yourself that you're not a bot. So the click the right icon, and then you're in. And that's basically it.
And you get whitelisted for the mint when you kind of try the beer and you post a picture there that you're trying the beer, if I got that right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
So
you try the beer and you post a photo of the beer on Twitter and on Discord. We'll find that, and then we'll associate whitelist. So we didn't want to kind of go down the road of basically having people to kind of chat like crazy. In I mean, we're not in our early 20s anymore. We all have we all have something to do during the day. I've never made it on the whitelist in one of those projects where you where you had to chat yourself, kind of fight chat yourself through. we didn't want to do it like that. We're a little bit more relaxed on that end. We just want that people enjoy the beer, and if they like it, share it. And that's the ticket for the whitelist.
Well, that's really good. So thanks for not putting up a whitelist grinding scheme where you have to go to level 20 on Discord or something like that. I also never made it. I'm not gonna
No.
make it. And yeah, I really like the process. It's easy. I got some beer, ordered it, posted it. I'm already whitelisted, and the mint is in October, if I got that right.
Well, we originally wanted to mint by the end of July. We now postponed it by 1 month to the end of August,
Okay.
but likely because end of August there's still a lot of kind of vacation going
Yeah.
on, so people are still out. So we're likely going to postpone it till end of September.
Yeah.
And so when I said before, kind of for the September Fest, end of September, we may have minted till then, but it will be too late for basically restricting
Yeah.
participation to NFT holders,
Yeah.
because then people would have to take a decision within a couple of days. And so yeah, so the plan is likely, I would say, is end of September the mint,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
yeah.
sounds like a plan. I will link the MetaBrew Society below this video or in the article I write about it, so you can check it out. Always keep in mind, if you invest in NFTs or any other project, not only MetaBrew but every project in that space, just invest money you're willing to lose. And I'm not a financial expert or something like that, so I'm interested in innovation and entrepreneurship, and this is why what was my interest of talking to Holger, to understanding this project more, because I'm interested in what we've heard today. So thank you very much, Holger, for joining in. If there is anything you want to add that you feel we didn't cover and it is important for you, then just feel free now to add.
Thanks a lot, Thomas. I think it was pretty comprehensive, so there's nothing in my mind that I need to express still. So yeah, no, I think we probably covered most of it.
Perfect. So thank you very much. And see you on Twitter and Discord. And if you like the video, subscribe to my newsletter, MadeMeThink.xyz. And looking forward to hear what you think about the MetaBrew Society. Take care. Ciao.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Thanks.